In the grand tapestry of our planet's history, a new and powerful force has emerged in recent times, the voice of humanity, raised in defense of the natural world. This is the story of environmental activism, a force born not of politics or power, but from a profound, shared love for the earth and a desperate need to protect it. It is a story of ordinary people achieving extraordinary things, standing together against seemingly insurmountable odds to safeguard the delicate balance of life that sustains us all. These are not merely protests. They are declarations of our responsibility as custodians of this world, a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit when it aligns with the preservation of nature. These movements, scattered across continents and decades, have fundamentally reshaped our relationship with the environment. They have woven themselves into the fabric of our laws, our economies, and our collective consciousness. From the dense forests of the Himalayas to the bustling streets of global capitals, these stories have inspired policy, halted destruction, and awakened millions to the fragility of our shared home. They demonstrate that the will of the people, when unified and focused, can indeed move mountains and protect the very air we breathe and the water we drink. In this journey, we will explore 10 such pivotal moments. We will witness the courage, the sacrifice, and the unwavering determination that defined these struggles. As we delve into these remarkable accounts, we will see how a single voice can swell into a chorus, how a small act of defiance can ignite a global revolution, and how our deep, instinctual connection to the natural world can inspire us to become its greatest champions. This is the chronicle of our planet's defenders and the legacy they have built for all future generations. Our story begins in the 1970s, nestled high in the Garhwal Himalayas of India. Here, in the quiet village of Mandal, the forests were not just a resource, they were the very source of life, providing food, fuel, and clean water. But when commercial loggers arrived, their axes threatened to sever this vital connection. In response, a remarkable form of protest was born, one rooted in Gandhian principles of non-violence. The villagers, led by courageous women like Gaura Devi, decided they would not fight but embrace. They walked into the forests and wrapped their arms around the trees, creating a living shield between the trunks and the blades. This simple, powerful act became known as the Chipko Movement, which literally translates to stick or to hug. It was a profound statement, declaring that the life of a tree was as valuable as their own. The movement quickly spread from village to village, a grassroots fire of peaceful resistance against deforestation. It was a fight for their livelihoods, yes, but it was also a fight for the soul of the forest. Their actions sent ripples across the nation, challenging the prevailing view of forests as mere commodities and highlighting the deep traditional wisdom of communities that had lived in harmony with nature for centuries. Across the globe, in the seemingly prosperous post-war United States of the 1960s, a different kind of threat was unfolding. It was silent, invisible, and carried on the wind. The widespread, indiscriminate use of synthetic pesticides, particularly DDT, was being hailed as a triumph of modern chemistry, eradicating pests and increasing crop yields. But one person, a marine biologist and writer named Rachel Carson, saw a darker truth. She observed the devastating impact these chemicals were having on the intricate web of life, from the smallest insects to the majestic birds of prey. In 1962, she published her seminal work, Silent Spring. The book was not a scientific paper for academics, but a beautifully written, powerful warning to the world. It painted a haunting picture of a future where the birdsong of spring had been silenced by poison. Carson meticulously documented how DDT accumulated in the food chain, causing thinning eggshells in birds like the bald eagle and posing unknown risks to human health. Her words ignited a firestorm of public outrage and fierce opposition from the chemical industry, but they could not be ignored. Silent Spring awakened a generation to the concept of ecology and the far-reaching consequences of human actions. We return to India, to the sacred Narmada River, a lifeline for millions. In the 1980s, a monumental plan was unveiled, a series of over 3,000 dams, including the colossal Sardar Sarovar Dam, intended to provide water and electricity. But for the hundreds of thousands of people living along the river's banks, mostly indigenous Adivasi communities and farmers, this development meant displacement. It meant losing their homes, their ancestral lands, and their entire way of life, all to be submerged beneath the rising waters. Out of this impending tragedy rose the Narmada Bachao Andolan, or the Save the Narmada movement. At its heart was the indomitable Bachao, an activist who fully immersed herself in the struggle, living alongside the communities threatened by the dam. The movement used every non-violent tool at its disposal: hunger strikes, peaceful marches, and powerful legal challenges. They did not just fight against a dam, they fought for a different model of development, one that respected human rights and environmental sustainability. They questioned who truly benefits from these mega projects and who pays the ultimate price. Their struggle brought the complex issues of environmental justice and the rights of displaced people to the forefront of the global conversation. In 1971, a small rusty fishing boat set sail from Vancouver, Canada. On board was a determined group of activists with a seemingly impossible mission: to stop a US nuclear bomb test on the island of Amchitka, Alaska. They named their boat the Greenpeace. Though they were ultimately intercepted, their courageous journey captured the public's imagination and helped galvanize opposition that eventually led to the end of testing in that region. This was the genesis of Greenpeace, an organization that would become, pretty much synonymous with bold, direct action environmentalism. They were not content to simply write letters or lobby politicians. Their philosophy was bearing witness, placing their own bodies on the line to confront environmental destruction head-on. From navigating inflatable boats between harpoon ships and fleeing whales to plugging the toxic effluent pipes of industrial plants, their tactics were designed for the television age. They brought the often hidden realities of whaling, seal hunting, and toxic dumping directly into people's living rooms. Their iconic ship, the Rainbow Warrior, became a global symbol of hope and defiance, really proving that a small group of committed individuals could indeed challenge powerful corporations and governments on the world stage, forcing changes in global environmental policy. By the late 1960s, a growing sense of unease was spreading. Rivers were catching fire, smog choked major cities, and the consequences of unchecked industrial growth were becoming impossible to ignore. A US senator named Gaylord Nelson, inspired by the energy of the anti-war student movement, envisioned a way to channel this concern into a unified force. He proposed a national teach-in on the environment, a day for education and action. The idea resonated deeply with the public, and on April 22, 1970, the very first Earth Day was born. The response was staggering. An estimated 20 million Americans, that's about 10% of the country's population at the time, poured into parks, streets, and auditoriums. It was, honestly, the largest single-day demonstration in human history. From New York City to small rural towns, people from all walks of life united with a common purpose: to demand a better, cleaner future for their planet. Earth Day was a political earthquake. It demonstrated a broad, bipartisan public mandate for environmental protection, leading directly to the creation of the United States Environmental Protection Agency and the passage of landmark legislation like the Clean Air, Clean Water, and Endangered Species Acts. It has since grown into a global tradition, a yearly reminder of our shared responsibility. In the pre-dawn hours of December 3, 1984, a catastrophic gas leak occurred at the Union Carbide pesticide plant in Bhopal, India. A toxic cloud of methyl isocyanate silently enveloped the sleeping city, turning it into a gas chamber. Thousands died within hours, and hundreds of thousands more were left with permanent, debilitating injuries. It remains the world's worst industrial disaster, a horrifying testament to corporate negligence and the failure of safety regulations. In the immediate aftermath, the focus was on survival, on tending to the dying and the injured in overwhelmed hospitals. But as the immediate horror subsided, grief turned to a righteous anger. The protests that followed were not just about seeking compensation for the victims. They were a desperate cry for justice and accountability. Activists and survivors demanded that Union Carbide and its executives be held responsible for the disaster. The movement highlighted the double standards of multinational corporations, which often operated with far less stringent safety measures in developing countries. The ongoing struggle of the Bhopal survivors has become a powerful, tragic symbol in the global fight for corporate accountability and the right to a safe environment and workplace. The Arctic, a vast frozen wilderness at the top of our world, may seem remote and desolate, but it is actually a critical regulator of the global climate and, home to a unique and fragile ecosystem. In the 2010s, as the polar ice began to melt at an alarming rate, major oil companies saw not a crisis, but an opportunity. They prepared to move in, to drill for oil in these pristine, treacherous waters, risking a catastrophic spill that would be, honestly, nearly impossible to clean up in such extreme conditions. In response, a global campaign, spearheaded by Greenpeace and a coalition of other groups, was launched, Save the Arctic. The campaign was a masterful blend of digital activism, celebrity endorsement, and classic direct action. Millions of people from around the world signed petitions, creating a virtual Arctic shield. Activists scaled oil rigs and London's Shard skyscraper to hang banners, making sure the issue stayed in the headlines. The movement wasn't just targeting governments, it was also going after the oil companies' brand reputation and their social license to operate. The immense public pressure worked. One by one, major players like Shell were forced to announce the suspension of their controversial Arctic drilling plans, proving that a united global voice could protect even the most distant corners of our planet. In a world that's, increasingly dominated by industrial agriculture and genetically modified organisms, the rich diversity of our food sources is under threat. For millennia, farmers have been the custodians of this diversity, saving and sharing seeds from one harvest to the next. This age-old practice, honestly, ensures food security and resilience. In 1987, the physicist and eco-feminist Dr. Vandana Shiva founded the Navdanya movement in India to protect this heritage. Navdanya, which means 9 seeds, began as a program to defend farmers from the encroachment of corporations patenting seeds and promoting chemical-dependent monocultures. The movement is built on a simple yet revolutionary idea: seed freedom. Dr. Shiva and the Navdanya network have worked tirelessly to establish community seed banks across India, empowering farmers, especially women, to conserve and cultivate thousands of traditional crop varieties. They really champion organic farming and biodiversity as the true path to sustainable agriculture. Navdanya is more than just an environmental movement. It is a movement for food sovereignty, for the rights of small farmers, and for the preservation of the biological and cultural knowledge that is encoded in every single seed. It is, I think, a quiet revolution, taking place in the fertile soils of countless small farms. In August 2018, a 15-year-old girl in Sweden decided she could no longer wait for adults to act on the climate crisis. Instead of going to school on a Friday, Greta Thunberg sat down outside the Swedish parliament with a simple hand-painted sign that read, "Skolstrike for klimatet, school strike for climate." Her solitary protest was honestly an act of profound moral clarity. She was asking a simple question: why should she study for a future that may not exist? Her quiet determination struck a chord that reverberated around the entire globe. What began with one girl and a sign exploded into a worldwide phenomenon known as Fridays for Future. Inspired by her example, millions of students from over 150 countries began walking out of their classrooms every Friday, taking to the streets to demand urgent and meaningful action from their leaders. This youth-led movement fundamentally changed the climate conversation. It infused the debate with a raw, emotional urgency and the moral authority of the generation that will bear the heaviest burden of climate inaction. They have proven that you are never too small to make a difference. By 2018, despite decades of warnings from scientists, government action on the climate crisis remained, dangerously inadequate. A group of activists in the United Kingdom decided that a more radical approach was needed. They argued that the social contract had been broken, that the government's failure to protect its citizens from climate and ecological collapse constituted a dereliction of duty. And so, they formed Extinction Rebellion, or XR. Their strategy was one of non-violent civil disobedience on a mass scale, designed to disrupt the normal functioning of society and force the issue onto the political agenda. Their actions were impossible to ignore. They blocked major bridges and roads in central London for days, glued themselves to government buildings, and staged dramatic die-ins to symbolize the mass extinction we face. They operate on 3 core demands: that the government must tell the truth about the climate emergency, act now to halt biodiversity loss and reduce emissions to net zero by 2025, and create a citizens' assembly on climate and ecological justice. While their disruptive tactics have been controversial, they have undeniably succeeded in elevating the urgency of the crisis and pushing governments, including the UK Parliament, to formally declare a climate emergency. From the women hugging trees in the Himalayas to the students striking for their future on city streets, we've witnessed the extraordinary power that lies within ordinary people. These 10 stories are but a few threads in a vast global tapestry of resistance and hope. They teach us that change rarely comes from the top down. It rises from the ground up, fueled by courage, conviction, and an unwavering love for our planet. These movements have faced powerful adversaries, public indifference, and honestly, seemingly impossible odds. Yet they have bent the arc of history towards justice and sustainability, securing victories that we all benefit from today. The struggles they represent are far from over. The climate crisis deepens, biodiversity is vanishing at an unprecedented rate, and the fight for environmental justice continues in countless communities around the world. The legacy of these movements is not just in the laws they helped pass or the disasters they helped avert. It is in the inspiration they provide. They show us that every voice matters, every action counts, and that we all share a profound responsibility to be custodians of this fragile earth, our only home in the vastness of the cosmos. The ultimate lesson from these chronicles is a call to action. It's a call to look around at our own communities, to identify the challenges we face, and to ask ourselves what we can do. We may not all be called to block a bridge or sail into a storm, but we can all learn from their courage. We can educate ourselves, speak out, support those on the front lines, and make conscious choices in our own lives that honor the planet. The future is not yet written. It will be shaped by us, by our willingness to stand up and become part of the next chapter in the story of our planet's protection.